Pecha Kucha 182, figuring out Smilee Show production. So I finished the one I was working on with Akuma, and now I'm going back to the list of Smilee Shows I've got to figure out how to create another 8 so I can get my Patreon rolling. There's a few things I'm trying to balance. We'll talk about it a bit in a bit. I started the week watching a Clip Studio Paint seminar by Mel Moulton. The picture of like him deciding how to draw faces with this diamond shaped thing was kind of like the thing that made me want to watch it. He's got his own way of doing things. He was basically just talking about how he goes about doing portraiture. I was sketching along a little bit as I was doing it, but I found it more interesting just learning about him as a self-made creative. Time well spent, yeah, but you always wonder if you couldn't be more productive. Did I learn anything art-wise? Maybe, maybe not. So what I've found myself doing almost by accident as I've been uploading my old collaborative comics with my pals onto Tumblr is I've kind of been blogging by accident. So I'm uploading the collaborative work by submission. So every time somebody uploaded X number of pages, that's a blog post. And then I talk about what that blog post meant to the overall scale of things. So I found myself with a queue of stuff waiting to print that goes into next week. And when Holy Crapola was finished, I started writing about the noir comic we did, and that's the next thing for me to upload is the thing we did afterwards, which never really had a name. While I was blogging, Neal Sanders' blog came up in the corner, and he just does these like animated 2-second gifs of just weird dudes dancing. It's very, very awesome. I'd leave a link in the description, but yeah, Neal Sanders. Google him if you care, you'll find him, right? Entertainment galore. So Smilee Shows, right? I've got all my old scans off of my random bits of paper on my computer, and what I have to figure out is which of them I want to save and which of them I want to flush, and then make them whatever I think the standard should be in Clip Studio Paint. I've done it with two so far, very short ones, 3 pages each. I think that's a size where I can produce them in theory in 1 week, and I could say new Smilee Show every week. The problem is a lot of my Smilee Shows are either 1-page jokes or they're like 10-page unfinished things, because effectively what am I doing? It's supposed to be a talk show with guests, and the guests come in and they answer questions, and then some cool stuff happens. That's pretty difficult to do in 3 pages and then wrap up, which is why most of my Smilee Shows either don't end or end on the spur of the moment. So I have to figure out the pacing going forward. What I might just do is do them in blocks of 3 and then like have a fake ad break and then continue. So it's more like I do 3 pages per week, more than 1 Smilee Show per week. So, for the new one I've done, which is ironically a Smilee Show reboot, it explains what the Smilee Show is, having done it for 10 years, but you wouldn't know. It starts with M. Bison coming in and saying, I fund the Smilee Show. Let me tell you what it is. And then, 4 pages in, the first guest shows up. So this is the Smilee Show here, where I have to figure out how would I want to break this up, because when the first guest shows up, I do want him to do stuff in it for it to go somewhere. I've had a lot of fun taking the original scans and then figuring out how to retell these jokes. Some of the jokes stay the same, some of them get tweaked. Because I don't actually have to worry about the art, I'm still at that formulative stage. It's just about enjoying the humor and the energy of what it is I'm trying to do, and I'm adding memes. Meme jokes I might have to take out. There's a Picard meme in here that in the top right hand corner, which might be a bit much, but it's been a lot of fun just reconnecting with the essence of what these things are supposed to be about, not just the colouring. And I have scanned the introduction Smilee Show Ash Crimson has, so I've got that now digitally saved. Not that you can explain why a guy like him should be anywhere near anything, but it's going to be fun because it's actually Rugal shows up as well. So I'm looking forward to getting onto that one. So I'm trying to figure out where I should hang my hat online in terms of community. So DeviantArt was always an idea. I just googled M. Bison to see what was there, because I think the easiest thing to do is find a group where we have an obvious thing in common. I love me some M. Bison, so that made sense. In terms of groups, there's only 3, and the most appropriate one that wasn't just hentai. The last relevant post seems to have been from someone 7 years ago, so this is inconclusive. But what I have noticed about DeviantArt is it's very easy to go on there and get lost looking at all kinds of nonsense that doesn't really go anywhere. So it also gave me the idea of actually just seeing what happens if I type in M. Bison on Tumblr. I saw lots of cool stuff, but again, what am I going to do? How am I going to communicate with these people? How can they help me? How can I help them? How can we M. Bison together, so to speak, right, as an example? I've also been reading a book on procrastination, written by a couple of, I think, psychologists from California. Interesting. The first half of the book is basically about the fact that you procrastinate based on your life experiences throughout your entire life. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And one thing that really struck me is this idea of being a maladaptive perfectionist, which is basically what I am. I hold myself to a standard I couldn't possibly achieve, and then when I don't achieve it, I get mad. And then it makes me want to do less going forward. It's an irony that I'm a perfectionist and a pragmatist, which is they're two kind of diametrically opposed viewpoints. More on that in the future. So sad clown of the week is the world, because, well, you know, everybody's afraid of getting sick, and some people are reacting more aggressively and in ways that aren't necessarily good for their local communities than others. It's dependent on what you do for a living. Work might be hard or it might be impossible. I think the government's announced it's going to pay certain people a certain percentage in certain industries to basically stop people having no money and no means of making money. But I know quite a few people who just got fired because the company didn't want to have to pay them, and the government hadn't said anything about this at this point. Hopefully you're doing okay. I'm doing fine for now. When the toilet paper runs out, it will be a great time to do what you should always do with your local Metro or Evening Standard, and use that instead. So that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 182, and I will see you next time, presuming there's still a world and it hasn't ended by this time next week.